Do we need to be worried about the coming of digital IDs and cbdc's? The Bible warned of something like this as the mark of the beast. This Bible verse could be interpreted by some as a prophetic warning against the use of digital IDs and cbdc's. The implementation of a digital ID is imminent and is more horrible than anyone could have anticipated. The time has come for me to fill you in regarding everything you need to know about digital IDs and the timeline for its implementation in your country. Not that I'm exaggerating, but this video might be the most crucial one you've ever viewed. Let us begin with the basics by defining what we mean by a digital ID. What we mean by digital identification is verifying one's identity in the digital realm. Simply said, a digital ID is an electronic replacement for the traditional forms of identification that many of us already carry, such as our national ID card, health card, driver's license, or passport type of biometric data to be created. Digital IDs, like traditional IDs, are issued or recognized by the government and require some of biometric data to be created. Your face, your fingerprints, and the color pattern in the center of your eye are all examples of biometric information. An electronic device such as smartphone or computer stores digital information rather than paper documents. The government or a private company with which the government has a contract stores all of the information necessary to verify your digital ID. Since digital ID systems are centralized and ultimately outside your control, this is a minor but vital aspect to remember. Your digital ID may be updated or even deleted at any time without your permission by the issuing government or private entity. A new physical ID will need to be issued in exchange for the old one, but this will only be possible if the old one is confiscated. This is considerably trickier than just tweaking some digital ID settings. The primary distinction between physical and digital identification is that different organizations or authorities are responsible for issuing various types of physical identification. Digital ID systems are just getting off the ground, but they will eventually replace your driver's license, passport, health card, and bank card. Science and technology indicate that your digital identity will be linked to everything. It will be required to access the internet, linked to your assets, and integrated into voting systems. Those who support digital ID systems claim that they will significantly improve efficiency, accessibility, and security. However, it should be evident that digital ID systems can evolve into something more sinister. The occurrence of this event might even have been predicted in some writing. In addition to being able to make alterations to your actual digital ID, the government or private company would also have the capacity to prevent you from making transactions or gaining access to services. This would be possible through the use of a blocking system. In a nutshell, the digital ID system would control our information with no way out, and it is a system that every nation will implement in the coming years. You might wonder who or what is driving the claimed global push for the digital ID. It would appear that the UN or United Nations is the answer in this scenario. Every nation on Earth is expected to have implemented universal digital identification by 2030 as part of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. The United Nations is collaborating with the business sector, the public sector, and other international organizations to ensure that all 17 SDGs are met in every country by 2030. The only World Economic Forum, also known as WEF, is the international group actively participating in the UN Sustainable Development Goals project. For the benefit of those who aren't aware, the World Economic Forum is made up of almost 4,000 of the most influential people in the world, and it also counts almost every significant institution among its members. Midway through 2019, the World Economic Forum and the United Nations entered a strategic collaboration to collaboratively accelerate the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The WEF, along with BlackRock, Bank of America, and other organizations, has been working to advance the Sustainable Development Goals through ESG. It is essential to keep in mind that the WEF is one of many entities that have participated in the distribution of digital IDs. Interestingly, the organization's push for digital IDs can be broken down into two distinct categories. The first group stands for private sector interest, while the second represents public sector interests. Both the public and private sectors stand to benefit a great deal from the implementation of digital identification systems. The critical advantage that will come to the private sector is an increase in economic involvement and profits they gain from it. The fundamental advantage provided to the public sector is a rise in levels of surveillance and control. Naturally, the WEF acts as a representative of the interest of the business sector. The World Trade Organization and the World Bank are the two other agencies pushing the use of digital IDs aggressively. The World Bank has been mainly involved in creating digital identification. For several years, it has been conducting digital ID systems trials in Africa and India. Regarding the interests of the public sector in digital ID, three organizations have been pushing it aggressively. The International Monetary Fund, also known as the IMF, comes in first, followed by the Bank for International Settlements, also known as the BIS, and finally, the Financial Action Task Force, also known as FATF. Implementing central bank digital currencies necessitates digital identification, which explains the IMF's and BIS's interest in the topic. In numerous papers and blog entries, both groups have made this point clear. The Financial Action Task Force's focus on digital ID arises from the aim of governments to provide uniform standards for such systems. The Financial Action Task Force produced a detailed report in March 2020 proposing digital ID standards. You should not underestimate the significance because they can force governments to follow their recommendations by passing corresponding laws in their own jurisdictions. By the time all nations are obligated to ensure that all crypto wallets and services are linked to digital IDs, most cryptocurrencies will be indistinguishable from most CBDCs. If you do not comply, you might face some kind of financial and social restrictions or worse. Surely by now, you're wondering whether and when digital IDs will arrive in your nation. By 2025, nearly all nations will have implemented national digital ID systems. This is the timeline provided by the UNDP in their February report. If you are interested, I'll provide a link to the study, which is titled Digital Strategy 2022 to 2025 below. The United Nations is working on implementing the fact that they are developing a separate digital ID system for high-level officials, which should tell you everything you need to know about their intentions. The question now is, how can you pressure the average individual into adopting a digital ID when they do not choose to do so? There is only one solution to this problem: to make life so difficult that not having a digital ID is intolerable for the typical person. This problem can be solved by making it so that the average person requires a digital ID to do everyday things. The people in charge are doing everything they can to stay in charge. As cliché as it sounds, this is all about those in power trying to keep their power by any means necessary. The sad reality is that they could easily fix things like war, corruption, unequal health, and climate change if they just stop printing money through central banks and other ways. They're seeking to impose their centralized corrupt power structures on everyone else instead. In the near future, I believe people will be able to use cryptocurrencies to create their own systems of authority. The issue with eliminating the ability to print money at will is that it would require the removal of those in power, and they're not going to do this. Instead, they're trying to impose their centralized corrupt power structures on everyone else. In that case, I have no objections. I think it's inevitable that cryptocurrency will allow regular people to establish their own decentralized systems of control. Since there will be more of us than there are of them, these power structures will be considerably more stable and effective than those built by the elites. Because of the laws and supply-demand in economics, this must occur. Is this really something that we need to worry about? What are your thoughts about digital IDs and CBDCs? Did you find this video helpful and informative? Please let us know in the comment section below. Please support us by showing your appreciation for this video and give us a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. If you want to be notified when we release a new video, click on the notification bell to be up to date on everything related to crypto and finance. That is it for today's video. This has been Diversified Streams. Thanks for tuning in, and see you in our next video.